Hello, my friends. I am back again, and I am going to be reading chapter 24 of the Yearling. I had it previously recorded, however, I was unable to download it. So, let's see how this goes. So, let me enlarge this just a little bit. There we go. And here we go. If I can find the beginning. Did I say chapter 23 or 24? Chapter 24, I think, is the one we're doing. Yes, chapter 24. This one's kind of funny because Ma gives them a shopping list. So this should be very interesting to hear. Okay, here we go. The forest of poisoning killed 30 wolves in 1 week. There was a pack left of a dozen or two that was wary and avoided the poison. Penny agreed to help them with their extermination by the legitimate means of trap and gun. The pack ranged wide and never killed twice in the same place. It invaded the forester corral one night. The calves bleated, and the foresters poured out. They found the cows holding the wolves at bay. They had formed a ring with the calves in the center and were on the defensive with lowered horns. One calf was dying with a torn throat, and two had their tails bitten off neatly at the rump. The foresters brought down 6 of the pack. The next day they set poison again, but the wolves did not return. 2 of their own dogs found the bait and died horribly. The foresters were willing to track down the rest of the pack in slower fashion. Buck came one evening at dusk to invite Penny to join them in a hunt the next morning at dawn. The wolves had been heard howling early that day at a waterhole west of the Forester's Island. A long dry spell had followed the flood, and the high waters had shrunk away. The swamps, the marshes, the ponds, the creeks were at nearly their usual level. What game was left could be counted on to visit various known waterholes. The wolves had made the same discovery. The hunt would serve 2 purposes. With luck, all the remaining wolves might be killed. Game also could be easily taken. The plague seemed to have run its course. Venison and bear meat again tempted the imagination. Penny accepted the invitation gratefully. There were enough foresters to make any hunt without outside help. It was generosity that had sent Buck to Baxter's Island. Jody knew it. He knew, too, that his father's knowledge of the ways of the game was always welcome. Penny said, "Spend the night, Buck, and we'll get off soon for day." "No, for I do come up missing at bedtime. They'll figure there's no hunt and not be ready." It was agreed that Penny should meet them an hour or so before day, at the intersection of the main trail with their own. Jody tugged at his father's sleeve. Penny said, "Can I carry my boy and my dogs?" "The dogs we count on, since Nell and Biggin was poisoned. The boy we hadn't figured on, but if you'll speak for him not to mess up the hunt." "I'll speak for him." Buck rode away. Penny prepared ammunition and oiled the guns. The Baxters went to bed early. It seemed to Jody that Penny was leaning over him, shaking him awake before he had even time to go to sleep. It was still night. Rising was always early, but there was usually at least a thin streak of light across the east. Now the world was as black as tar, and the trees still rustled with the night winds. There was no other sound quite like it. For a moment he regretted his anxiety of the evening before. Then he thought ahead to the hunt, and excitement warmed him, and he jumped from bed into the cold air He slid his feet along the snug softness of his deerskin rug as he pulled on his shirt and breeches. He hurried to the kitchen. A fire was crackling on the kitchen hearth. His mother was placing a pan of biscuits in the Dutch oven. She had an old hunting coat of Penny's over her long flannel nightgown. Her gray hair hung in braids over her shoulders. He went to her and smelled her and rubbed his nose against her flannel breast. She felt big and warm and soft, and she slipped his hands under the back. He slipped his hands under the back of the coat to warm them. She tolerated him a moment, then pushed him away. I never had no hunter act like such a baby, she said. You'll be late for the meeting if breakfast late. But her tone was friendly. Jody sliced bacon for her. She freshened it in hot water, then dipped it in flour and put it in an iron skillet to fry to a crisp brown. Interesting way of frying bacon. He had not thought he was hungry, but the sweet, nut-like fragrance of it was overwhelming. Flag came from the bedroom and sniffed too. She said, You feed that fawn and tie him in the shed before you forget. I'll not be tormented with him while you're gone. He led Flag outside. The fawn was frisky and bolted away. He had trouble in following him and catching him in the blackness. He tied him first and then gave him a mash of meal and water. He said, You'll be good and I'll tell you about the wolves when I get home. Flag bleated after him. If it were only an ordinary hunt, he would almost rather stay home with him. But Penny had said that they meant to kill off the last wolf in the scrub, and he might never see another again so long as he lived. When he went to the house, Penny had come in from the milking. The quantity was short because of the early hour. Breakfast was ready. They ate hurriedly. Ma Baxter did not eat, but put up a lunch for them. Penny insisted that they would be home again for dinner. She said, You've said that before, and then come in after dark with your belly pinching you. Jody said, Ma, you're so good. Oh, yes, when it's rations. Well, I'd a heap rather you was good about rations and mean about other things. Oh, I be mean, be I? Only about just a very few things, he soothed her. Penny had saddled Caesar when he was at the barn. The horse stamped now, hitched at the gate. He knew a hunt as well as the dogs. They came with waving tails, gulped a pan of grits and gravy, and followed after. Penny slung a coil of rope and the saddlebags over Caesar's back, mounted into the saddle, and pulled Jody up after him. Ma Baxter handed their guns up to them. Penny said to Jody, Now take care how you swing that thing around. You kill your pa and y'all rarely have to hunt for living. It seemed surely that day must break. The horse's hooves thumped in the sand. The road gave back the sound, then dropped behind them as it stretched before in silence. Strange, he thought, that the night should feel more silent than the day, when most of the creatures stirred them and did their sleeping when the sun rose. Only a hoot owl cried, and when its crying ended, they rode forward into a dark emptiness. It was natural to speak in whispers. The air was chill. In his excitement, he had forgotten to put on his ragged jacket. He leaned close against his father's back.